Hello.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Lilit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Maru VR.
And I'm Rein, co-founder and creative director of Maru VR.
And we are happy to see you all and talk about our company and the project. So 7 years ago, we founded Maru VR, and we were passionate and committed to make a studio that focuses only on virtual reality and creates different kind of games and experiences only for this very new and interesting platform. And since then, we have created more than 40 different VR experiences for different sectors, like for education and marketing and tourism. And from this experience, we found out that we are quite good at creating experiences that have gamified elements and like small games. Maybe you are familiar with our projects that are available publicly also in Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund, where there's a project about introducing different occupations. Also in Kalevipoeg Museum, there is a Kalevipoeg's Journey to Hell, based on the book, and also different Tallinn Teletorn, of course, the fly around the TV tower. So there are different projects available publicly as well. But from the start, when we founded the company, we started to look our own project, something that it's with our own IP and that we can really build on and make it as bigger as possible. And this was actually the time that we made a pivot in the company, and we made a change from custom-made VR to VR game studio, and started focusing on one project.
Well, basically, the idea of our own project was in our heads when we already founded the company. Well, I've known Lilit for 15 years, and creating her own product or project like this has been her dream, as far as I know. But when we started thinking about making our own game, I remember that in 2018, I pitched a game to a friend that it was a tribal management game where you use your body language and then the tribals will mimic it. This idea was just kind of in the back burner until I reread Robinson Crusoe and realized that a survival situation is actually a very good basis for a game, because there's a lot of resource management and you have to be in charge of what you do. You have to make hard choices. Of course, survival games are very popular, but somehow with Robinson Crusoe, it kind of didn't make it feel like just another copy of some Minecraft-like game, but rather that it could be its own kind of a gameplay loop, which would actually work very well in VR if the interactions are good enough. So we started from there, where I created a design document, and we kind of started looking for different ways to create a prototype until we completed the prototype in 2021. And what's interesting to mention is that the prototype was made in Unreal Engine, but at that time we hadn't decided yet if we're going to make the game in Unity or Unreal platform, because it happens that in Estonia, especially during that time, there were very few Unreal Engine experts, and there were more people who were able to work with Unity. So the decision to make the game actually on Unreal Engine came quite last. And in late 2021, we started production on the actual game. I think the team back then was about 3 people, and slowly started to build up and create the foundation of a full game, which was back then still called Flintlock Island. but apparently a studio in New Zealand had already copyrighted name Flintlock, so they were not willing to share. So yeah, we had a lot of different names flying around, like Deadlock Island and stuff like this, until we went to GDC in March 2022, and then basically I created a Steam page in the hotel room because it would be very weird talking about your game if you don't even know what the name is, and Bootstrap Island was then solidified. A little bit about the design concept of the game. So the idea behind Bootstrap Island was to create a game which would really play on the strengths of VR medium. That it feels good to be inside this world, it feels good to interact with something. What you do is not just a sandbox when you're playing around with things. What you're doing actually matters. Your survival depends on you making the right interaction in the right way. The game is systemic, it's replayable, very interactive, and also one thing that we found pretty soon is that if a game is realistic and it looks real, then it's much more fun to watch, because you don't have to explain to people what they're watching, but rather they understand it just by looking at things like you drink water to quench your thirst, or you need fire to push darkness away. So I think survival is a very good setting because you don't really have to translate it, because everybody in the world just understands the concept. So the combination of roguelike survival was actually something that I feel like hasn't been really done before. There's a lot of roguelike games and a lot of survival games, but it's usually one or the other. Roguelikes are often dungeon crawler type of games, and survival is often... what I dislike about survival games is often they start as survival games and then they turn into a village building simulator or a management simulator. And the survival gameplay doesn't matter after the initial hours. I think survival by itself is a very interesting mechanic, and it can drive the game further. And also one of the ideas was that the game can be played in short sessions, that you don't have to be in a game for hours and hours, but rather you can throw on a headset, be in a game really quickly, and then play maybe 10-15 minutes, die really fast, and then you can play again or take off the headset and have a rest. This maybe didn't combine as well with the realistic style as we originally expected, but the concept is still there. And also very important was the feel of like an old narrative novel adventure novel style, because the feel of the game is inspired by books that I liked to read as a kid, like Robinson Crusoe or Treasure Island, and we wanted to have that atmosphere and also the time period inside the game, which is mainly spoken to the player through the narrator, which is like a deep English voice that you hear, which is commenting on everything that you do. Yeah, just a final comment on that is that realistic feel is something which sounds very straightforward, but it was actually maybe trickier than we expected. Making a realistic looking game is very difficult technically, because when you go with that style, then it means that everything that's even slightly out of the ordinary will feel like a mistake. When something like a shadow renders in a wrong way, or something doesn't look like it should, then it feels like there's something wrong with the game. So this we set ourselves to a very high standard in that regard. But also gameplay wise, for example, some gamified elements might feel weird to some people, because some with a realistic style, there's definitely some players who expect the game to be like a completely simulated realistic experience, and they are disappointed when things are not as they are in real world in every exact thing. So there's this constant balancing between fun and realism that we have to take into consideration.
Yes, when we started to develop Bootstrap Island, then we actually had one employee. We had some partners, but one employee, he's here now. And when we told him about the project, then he decided to leave the company. He said, no, thank you, I'm not taking part of this. Actually, he went to develop his own game, so great success with this. But now we...
Digested, coming out this year.
Yes. But we kept our vision and started building the team, and now we have around 15 people working on the game with different backgrounds, from AAA titles to indies, and also, of course, VR, which is our main core strength, I would say. And with this team, we reached the biggest milestone in the whole Maru VR history, and Bootstrap Island was February 22nd, when we launched the game on Steam into early access, the first small milestone. So here is the trailer.
Shipwrecked, strange land, cut off from all mankind. My fate is in my own hands. Shipwrecked on a strange land. Cut off from all mankind. My fate is in my own hands. Shipwrecked from a strange land. Cut off from all mankind. My fate is in my own hands.
I want to add that the voiceover actor for the main character is his name is Rein. He's a youth pastor from Texas.
And if you are familiar with the gaming industry, it can be quite honest and quite, let's say, intense and critical. So you can imagine the next day when we open Steam to see what the players actually think about our game. We have to say that they like the game, which is amazing news, because you can create how good you think you are doing it. If the players don't like it, then the game will die when it's released. But what happened to us was that our wishlist went up quite a lot. We got featured on the Steam main page under the VR section. Also, we are presented in different categories in the VR specific area. Sometimes close to Into the Radius, which is like, oh my God, we are next to Into the Radius. And so I'm always posting when that happens, like when we are close to someone who's well known. big thing for us. And what was really amazing to see was actually the content creators who made videos of the game. So we didn't pay them to do it. They did it. They found the game. They made the content, and there's like more than 3 million views altogether on the videos and series of videos created. So and the feedback from the community, from the players, from the creators have been really overwhelmingly positive. And this is really when we launched the game into early access, we thought that then we decide if we go on with the game, because we have so much plans with the game, we have so much things we want to do, and we will decide based on the feedback if there is base and foundation to make this like the best survival game, then we will continue doing it, and we will push on. And we got this feedback, and we are committed to going forward with this project as far as we can, basically. So. Future plans.
So we just we have been out now for 3 months. During this time, we have made 9 updates. Some of them smaller bug fixes, some smaller new features, and just yesterday we launched the first major update to the game. So we have a little trailer for that as well.
That full screen this time.
I think it's pretty fun if a major update or a major add-on to the game is that the game now has inventory. But yeah, in the beginning of the game, the idea is that you only use your 2 hands because of the physicality of the game. And then inventory is something that you have to unlock and find. So the plan going forward is a major update in every 3 months. In the meantime, like smaller hotfixes or bug fixes. And to keep the community engaged with some events or competitions and other things in the meantime. And we expect to launch into retail, the full launch, leave early access in end of 2025. And then the updates don't stop. The post-launch patches will still keep on expanding the game. We haven't announced any other VR platforms yet. They might come. We are not actively working on them at this time. And basically our strategy or the way that we approach VR, because VR is still a very small percentage of the main gaming market. So our belief is that the only point to make a VR game is that when you're aiming for the absolute top, that you have to be in top 10 or top 20 games, because players only have attention to a smaller amount of games. So we think we can do that, and this is our goal. And that's the last slide. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
Or do we have time for questions?
Yeah, we have time for a couple of questions.
Ask away.
I'm curious, what was like the initial feedback from the early access? Like which features were like the most requested from players?
Well, building and crafting. This is a tough subject because originally the idea to make a roguelike survival game was not to make a crafting game. I'll explain a little bit about the game design reasoning behind it. So when it's a roguelike game, it's very high stakes, and basically one mistake can be your death. You have to plan ahead, you have to take good care of your inventory and the resources that you have. So we felt like when this turns into this skill tree based crafting game, like for example Don't Starve, then people would be very devastated when they die because they lose everything. So it felt to me like these two genres don't mix that well. But people are so used to having some sort of crafting or building in a survival game that the lack of crafting was very, very noticeable, and a lot of people were asking for it. And I thought it through very carefully and decided that if the building part of the game is actually something that fits well into the rest of the gameplay loop, that you actually have to carefully manage your resources. It takes a lot of time, you have to travel around, you have to use your daylight very carefully, at the same time worry about finding water, finding food, being safe from animals and so on. But when you do that, then it pays off because it helps you survive against animals longer. So we did it in a way that it doesn't ruin the original gameplay loop and the concept, but rather that it strengthens it in a way. So this is one thing. And the other thing that we keep getting feedback about is the length of the daylight, because it's pretty short, the daylight cycle. And we have raised it actually several times so that the days are longer, and might raise it more in the future when there's more things to do during the day. But we don't want it to be realistic, because I mean, it can't be realistic. It can't be a 24-hour day cycle, but we still want to keep the player constantly on their toes, because they have to worry about the daytime and so on. So these are the main things, I would say.
I think I add multiplayer into the radius as well.
Yeah,
multiplayer
you know that
is something
well.
that the players just constantly ask.
I want to be alone on a deserted island, but with a friend.
One more very quick question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any plans for weapons or weapon upgrades in the game?
Weapon upgrades.
Like new weapons other than the flintlock pistol?
There's a flintlock pistol. There's a flintlock musket, and we plan to have more weapons in the future. Yes, but one thing that we probably won't lean to very strongly is the melee weapons. Like maybe there will be some sort of a melee weapon, but we feel like there's a lot of games which have done like sword play and things like this very well, and I feel like especially when you're surviving against animals, then your sword fighting skills will maybe be a little bit wasted. So I think we will keep the focus more on firearms, and maybe in the future stuff like bows or blowguns or stuff like this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.